Why did I pick this stallion, Finest, to breed to this mare, Devine, in order to produce a dressage type foal? Let's take a look at the mare, let's take a look at the stallion, and then let's see how they complement each other and why I made the decision that I did. So when I consider a stallion, there's always 4 things that I look at. Number 1, the conformation of the stallion. What does he look like himself? Second of all, the statistics that were gathered by the registry where he was approved. What are the statistics telling me over a large number of foals? I will also consider whether or not that stallion is fertile with frozen semen. If the stallion is in Europe, I'm in North America, the only way to have access to his genetics is through his frozen semen. Finally, perhaps the most important for any stallion is to look at what he actually throws, meaning take a look at the offspring, take a look at pictures and at videos, and look at what it is that he passes on, and does it complement my mare. By the way, there's way more than 4 things to consider. I'm not even getting into the bloodlines, the reputation of the stallion owner, the type of movement that the stallion has, or whether or not he was successful in competition. I had already considered Finest and I wanted to use him in my program at some point. I was wondering whether or not this was the right stallion for this particular mare. So first of all, let's look at the conformation of Finest. So let's get one thing out of the way. This is an approved stallion, meaning it's being picked apart by inspectors, by people that know way more than I do on the correct conformation of sport horses. So I'm not expecting to find any flaws or major defect in this horse, but rather I look at the general balance of the horse. What do I like about it, and how does it compare to what I'm looking for to maybe shore up in my mare? As you will see, my mare needs a strong loin connection, so my eye goes naturally to that part of the horse on Finest, and what I see there I really like. I like the angle of his croup, and I like how strongly muscled his loin area is. I also quite like his front end, a beautiful shoulder. I like the way that the neck ties into it, and he's got a nice 90-degree angle with his upper forearm. So these are things that I'm particularly looking for, and this stallion seems to carry it. The second thing I look at is the statistics that have been published by the registry that approved the stallion. In this case, it's the Hanoverian. We can look at the Hanoverian Stallion Guide. When we turn to the page for Finest, we look at all the information that they have gathered on him. He has over 900 offspring to pull information from. So clearly a very popular sire. When we look at his breeding index for dressage, so his propensity to produce a horse that have the quality necessary to perform well in dressage, we see that it is 133. Anything over 100 indicate a positive impact, so that's pretty good. We also look at the various other details that they provide, and we see that all the graphs are deflected to the right, indicating a positive impact. So Finest has a positive impact on most of these characteristics, which is very good. We see a few that are hovering close to 0, a tiny bit in the negative. That simply means that he doesn't seem to have a really big impact on these particular characteristics. In this case, it happens to be the correctness of the limb, meaning he doesn't improve, but he also doesn't detract from it. Hey, by the way, if you don't know what these breeding index and numbers and statistics are, you're not alone. Every registry does it slightly differently. So if you would like me to go into that and to describe it a little bit more, drop me a comment and maybe I'll do a video about it at some point. The only graph that is deflected to the left is the one associated with height. That means that overall, over many offspring, what we see is that Finest does not produce big horses. We will see that in the case of the mare that I'm considering for him, it's not a bad idea actually to take a stallion that does not contribute too much height. Thirdly, I looked around and I wanted to know if there was a lot of offspring by him that were conceived in North America, because that would tell me that the quality of his frozen semen is sufficient to actually get mares pregnant. And there are quite a few of them born in North America. I know quite a few breeders that have bred multiple times to him with good success. So I can safely assume that the frozen semen is of good quality and that the stallion is fertile. finally, the fourth point, the most important, is what does the stallion actually passes on? So let's talk about the temperament first. So I talked to some people that have trained and ridden finest offspring. I've read the description of some of the horses that are for sale by him, and I've also looked in the forums and the bulletin board and the electronic conversation out there on social media about what he passes on. So what I hear is that his offspring are calm, they're very sensible, they're easy to train, they generally are very forgiving. Those are really good quality. That's the kind of horse that I'm looking for the amateur market, for which I breed mostly. The downside of that, his horses are a little bit on the soft and maybe a little bit lazy side. And for those that are looking for the oomph, the hotness, or the reactivity, you can call it, of horses for the upper level, that might not be the right stallion in this case. But for what I'm trying to produce, and paired with the particular mare that I have in mind, I think that a stallion that passes on nice, quiet temperament with a forgiving nature, very important. Finally, let's look at the conformation of some of his offspring. If we look at his foals, we see, it's a little bit harder to see in foals, but we see foals with a beautiful front end. We see that neck coming clearly through, a nice laid back shoulder. Not all of them are as short coupled as he is. Some of them are a little bit on the longer side, but they do appear to have that strong croup and loin connection. Let's take a look at mature horse, and what we see as we look at them here is a good shoulder, a nice croup. I like the loin connection on that one. If we look at this one, we see a beautiful harmonious animal with a beautiful front end. And again, I'm looking at that hind end with a good loin connection. This one is actually in movement, but we can see the importance here of the croup and how strong it needs to be in this particular point of the canter. And we see here again a sense of strength. Finally, let's take a look at the mare. Devine is a mare that I bred, so I know her dam very well. All her half brothers by this mare were big. We're talking 16.2, 16.3, and 2 of them matured well over 17 hands. So I have to be careful here not to pick a stallion that could contribute a lot of height. The mare is a well-balanced mare. I like the proportion on her. I really like her neck. I like her laid back shoulder, but I would prefer that angle to be a little bit more open. It's a little bit closed, and I think that's something that gives her the appearance of being a little bit heavy on the forehand. She isn't when she is ridden, but certainly if there's something to improve, I would be looking at that. Her weakest point is the loin connection, and that's why I was particularly looking at finest for this. I would also like to see the croup a little tilted a bit more. It would help her sit under herself a bit more. Temperament wise, as a foal, she was a very sensitive and reactive and unforgiving foal. Thankfully, she's matured into a much more reasonable mare, and she is quite easy to handle, but she has kept a little bit of that sensitivity, and she does not suffer foals gladly. So I'm looking for something maybe a little bit more forgiving and gentle in terms of temperament. She doesn't have a bad temperament by any mean. I would not breed her if she did, but there's a sharpness there, and it's something that I've heard from a lot of Volcantans to offspring. Some of them can be hot, particularly the mares. So I think that the pairing with Finest with his nice and quiet temperament would probably be a good thing. To see the result of this particular pairing, I encourage you to go and take a look at this video.